Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is now out playing in theaters. So a lot of us, if not all of us, come to these Mission Impossible films for the insane action and stunts. But before we talk about the insane action and stunts of this movie, I gotta talk about the standout of this movie, and for me, that was Hayley Atwell. More specifically, that was Hayley Atwell with Tom Cruise and their partnership, their team up in this movie. And Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt has had a lot of female companions throughout the Mission Impossible series, but with Hayley Atwell's character of Grace, I found that she has already topped the list with this first entry into the franchise. And a lot of that has to do with the dynamic between the characters, because Hayley Atwell plays this thief that kind of crosses Ethan's path during a mission, and is going after the same thing he's going after, and she's always able to give Ethan the slip that watching Ethan lose her through the cracks of his fingers is so much fun to witness. And it's a different type of relationship that we've seen in the Mission Impossible franchise when it comes to Ethan and his teammates. But the thing that really makes her stand out is the depth to the character that Hayley Atwell is able to give her. Because while she may come off at times as a complete jerk to Ethan throughout the movie, I mean, some of the stuff that she does to leave him behind is pretty cruel. I mean, there's a scene in this movie where she handcuffs Ethan to a car while he's about to be hit by a train. Not a very likable thing to hear, and written on paper, it seems like a real jerk move, but what Hayley Atwell is able to bring to the character, the empathy that she brings, the compassionate, you get to see behind the curtain of this character just through Hayley Atwell's performance. It's phenomenal, it's great, she was phenomenal in the movie, and I'm honestly really interested to see where this character goes in the future of this franchise. And yes, with Mission Impossible, you get the crazy action, you get the crazy stunts, almost single-handedly provided by Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt. And what I will say about the action in this movie is that, yes, it is great. It is a lot of fun. There are tons of sequences in this movie that have you on the edge of your seat. The motorcycle stunt that you've seen heavily promoted in the ads and in the marketing of this movie, when you see that wind pushing against Tom Cruise's face, pushing his cheeks out as he's falling on that big, gigantic theater screen, it is so exciting. But Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning is coming off of Mission Impossible Fallout, and the action in Mission Impossible Fallout was such a high bar that it was almost impossible for them to get to that height again. And I do feel like in terms of a Mission Impossible movie, this is a bit of a step down from the action of Fallout. But that's not to say that the action in this movie isn't great. It isn't a lot of fun to watch. It absolutely is. I loved every second of it. There's just a little less of it than you got in Fallout. Because Dead Reckoning is part one of a story, so they do take time to make sure that this two-parter has its story set up. So there's a lot more scenes in this movie establishing story and setting up things for characters than I would say in previous Mission Impossible movies. And that's kind of where the negatives of this movie get a little bit hard for me to pinpoint for this, because it is part one. It isn't a complete story. So there's things in this movie that they delve into Ethan's past a little bit more that I would have liked to have had more of, but I can't really knock this movie for that until I see part 2 and see how they complete that or further expand upon it. As well as the villain in this movie, I didn't think that this was the most compelling villain that the Mission Impossible films have ever had. A lot of this has to do with this thing called the Entity, basically like this AI machine that Ethan and his team are going up against this time around. And I did feel that the movie had to do a lot of setup for this thing in a short period of time, as crazy as that sounds in a 2.5 hour movie. And with that, I do feel like the movie's a little bit overly convoluted for its own good when it comes to the plot and the details within the plot. But like I said, a lot of the things that I feel like I have issues with this movie are because it is a part one, and I can't really say that they're negatives until I see how they come to fruition in part 2, and once this whole thing is complete. But what I will say about Dead Reckoning Part 1 is that it's probably the most satisfying and fulfilling Part 1 to a movie I've ever witnessed. Because while this is a Part 1, it still in and of itself feels like a complete story. Characters go through character arcs that they start at the movie, they end at a certain place at the end of the movie. Characters have their stories fully told by the end of the movie. The Part 1 of this mission is completed. You do feel like there is a second part to the mission that we still have to go on, which makes you yearn for part 2. But when you leave this movie, when I left this movie, I felt like I had watched a complete and satisfying film. And honestly, that was kind of surprising, because that's more than I felt like I was going to get from a part 1. All you got to do is ask Fast 10 and Across the Spider-Verse. But even with all that said and done, I really enjoyed my time watching Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. I truly believe that this is the movie of the summer. It gives you everything you want from this franchise. You get the car chases, you get the exciting action, you get the stunts, you get Tom Cruise running. What more could you ask for? If you've been a fan of this franchise up until this point, I definitely think that this is a mission that you should choose to accept, and I strongly recommend that you go and check out Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. It's worth it for the finale of this film alone. My knuckles have never been whiter in a theater this year. Anyway, guys, those are all my thoughts and opinions on Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. But what did you guys think of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1? Did you enjoy it as much as I did? Did you find less enjoyment in it? Are you waiting for Part 2 to fully make up your mind? Comment down below. Let me know all your thoughts and opinions about that, guys. And if you're new here and you haven't heard, we have a goal on this channel. We want to hit 2,500 subscribers. We have already crossed the 2,000 subscriber mark. Thank you, everyone who made that possible. If you want to help us get 500 more and reach our goal, we'd love to have you join our community. We'd love to have you talk movies with us. Consider hitting that subscribe button on your way out. As always, guys, thank you so much for hearing me out, and I hope to talk to you guys again real soon.